Good evening, everyone. I'm having some technical difficulties here. However, we're moving on, and our session is going to be about heroin tonight. And but before we get into it, just want to remind you that for those who are interested in joining us every week, we would like for you all to be so kind and get the self-certification form and fill it out. We're not going to give the federal government your name. We just need some information so that we can show who we are serving, especially in the Hagerstown area, because that's where we're located. And we want to continue to uh, receive the funding that we're getting to provide services to all our family, friends, and loved ones who want to participate in these classes. So we have 45 minutes as usual, and I don't want to take away from any of our time, but we'll be talking about the history of heroin, the heroin's health hazards, the traits of the abuser, and lastly, destruction of coping skills. And in my notes here, we're going to begin with the history of heroin. Heroin does not occur naturally. It is a chemical modification of morphine. I did not know this for the longest time, but when I was educated to this, I'm like, wow, this is something else, which in turn comes from opium. Heroin is 10 times more powerful than morphine. No wonder people are not jumping for morphine any longer and they're going after opiates or heroin. Heroin is known on the street as horse, smack, China white, Mexican brown, Persian white, black tar, gumball, and Tootsie Roll. Heroin has been called the king of narcotics because of its intense, euphoric, long lasting effect. It also comes in different colors. Mexican heroin is usually brown to gray. Middle Eastern and Asian is white. Black tar heroin is a new synthetic and is very pure. Heroin is different from many other drugs because the user does not trip, or another word would be hallucinate, or speed, become stimulated. It produces a pleasurable sensation and it creates a false sense of peace, but provides no means to attain it. Heroin is an escape to a world of make believe. It can cause a person to lose the ability to separate fantasy and reality. The user gets to a point where he never faces problems. He waits for the next high so that he can escape. Okay, let's check out the health hazards. It's an illegal and highly addictive narcotic. Addictive or dependence producing properties are exhibited by Number one, persistent, regular use of the drug. Number two, significant and painful withdrawal symptoms accompany attempts to stop use of the drug. Number three, continued use despite damaging physical and psychological problems. Number four, compulsive drug seeking behavior. Number five, need for increasing doses of the drug. Heroin exerts its primary addictive effect by activating both the region of the brain that produces the pleasurable sensation of reward and the region that produces the physical dependence. These two affected areas account for the user's loss of control and their lives and the drug's habit forming action. There are many health problems related to heroin use and are caused by uncertain dosage levels due to fluctuations in purity, use of unsterile equipment, contamination of heroin by cutting agents, or use of heroin in combinations with other drugs such as alcohol or cocaine. And typical problems include skin abscesses, inflammation of the veins, serum hepatitis, and addiction with withdrawal symptoms. Utilization of unsterile needles by multiple individuals, needle sharing, increases the risk of exposure to HIV, the agent for acquired immune deficiency syndrome, which is AIDS. Intravenous drug users account for approximately 25% of all reported AIDS cases. In the first half of 1985, intravenous drug users accounted for 33% of all new AIDS cases. 54% of newborns contracting AIDS had a parent who was an intravenous drug user. Symptoms, of a heroin overdose include shallow breathing, clammy skin, convulsions, and coma death may result. The next thing we would talk about is traits of the abuser. It's not hard to tell if someone is using heroin. Most users are lethargic and indifferent to the things and activities around them. They appear to be dazed and have a far away look in their eyes. Most often, if a user is sitting still, he will start to nod off and will have problems staying awake. There are many ways to spot users because of the marks left on their bodies and the equipment needed to use the drug. Their arms and bodies have punctures, tracks from injecting, and black and blue marks from skin popping. Most often, they will have a number of health problems such as runny nose and eyes, sneezing, irritability, insomnia, loss of appetite, pains in the back and muscles, excessive sweating, nausea, abdominal cramps, tremors, and weight loss. Another area will be destruction of coping skills. Heroin makes it hard to separate reality from fantasy. Since a user doesn't trip on heroin, but basically stays in control of his senses, he wants the real world to be just as he felt it while under the influence of the drug. It makes everything seem pleasurable. The user feels that the whole world is in love with him and no harm will befall him. But once the influence of the drug wears off, he is faced with the problem of real life. He begins to hate the real world and so tries to escape whenever possible. He gets to a point where he can handle or he can't handle pressure or problems in any form. His life begins to center around escaping back to the world of make believe. His body becomes addicted to the drug and he begins to hunger for the feelings. When he doesn't feed that desire, he goes through severe withdrawals. Also, when a user looks at what he has become and the depths to which he has fallen, he may possibly determine to break his addiction. Medications are available to help, but still, he must have a strong desire and determination to quit. Once he has broken through the physical withdrawal, he must also redevelop the necessary mental skills to cope with life and its problems. And even though I may have been talking about he, using the word he, but I'm not talking only about males or gender male. I am talking about everyone who uses it. Okay, application. Applying this information. Heroin today is much more deadly than just 10 years ago. Synthetic heroin today is so powerful that one trip may be the last. Years ago, brown heroin out of Mexico was about as strong as anyone could get. But now the labs have produced what is called black tar. Chemists have gotten the chemical structure so pure that most users face a serious risk of overdose. Heroin has a very tight grip on someone he starts, since it affects the region of the brain that is responsible for producing the pleasurable sensation of reward. It turns very ugly if he tries to stop because of the painful withdrawal symptoms. Users have almost a compulsion to stay on heroin rather than to face withdrawal. Everyone likes the high, but no one looks forward to his body going through the pain of withdrawal. Okay, many junkies never intend to end up addicted. Many young kids sell themselves on the street just to get enough money to buy another balloon of dope. In describing heroin's addiction, someone wrote the poem King Heroin, patterned after Psalms 23. King Heroin is my shepherd, I shall always want. He maketh me to lie down in the gutters. He leadeth me beside the troubled waters. He destroyeth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of wickedness. Yea, I shall walk through the valley of poverty and evil, for thou, King Heron, art with me. Thy needle and thy capsule comfort me. Thou strippest the table of groceries in the presence of my family. Thou robbest my head of reason. My cup of sorrow runneth over. Surely heroin addiction shall stalk me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the damned forever. I wouldn't serve anything that will take over as my guide, because truly all of this is detrimental to anyone's life. Anyone who has been down this path knows that heroin robs a person of everything, from family to personality. Heroin destroys the ability to reason and to deal with life's problems. Isn't it frustrating to be around someone who is facing the same problems you are and nothing seems to bother that person? They're both of you are facing the same problems and having to make the same decisions, but the situation doesn't bring the other person to the same state of misery that you are in. The difference is in the way people look at their problems. Successful people decide that no matter what, they're going to make it. Now, I always try to give uh, food for thought or an example because there's nothing new under the sun. As I've stated so many times in the various classes, that I want to go back and give you the story of Jonah's testimony. Jonah had a hard time dealing with life as it came to him. When God told Jonah to go to Nineveh to preach, Jonah decided that this was one problem he was going to avoid. Oftentimes we feel like that. We avoid certain circumstances or certain instructions. The people of Nineveh didn't like the Israelites. It would be almost like sending a Jew into Germany to talk to Hitler. It is understandable why Jonah wanted to ignore the problem. To avoid the problem, he went to Joppa. He found a ship going a different direction and boarded it. Excuse me. As the ship sailed, a storm began to rise, and the sailors did all they could. Excuse me. Excuse me. But it was easy to see the ship was not going to make it. Oftentimes we get in situations like similar to this, and it's not so pleasant to go through it. And it doesn't look very promising or very hopeful while you're going through the situation. And that's the way Jonah was feeling, or the Israelites were uh, looking at the situation that they were going through. And the sailors did all they could, but it was easy to see what the ship was not going to do. They asked Jonah to pray to his God to see if somehow he might deliver them. But Jonah realized that his problem was facing him once again. And he explained to the sailors and to the crew that he was running from a problem that he did not want to face. And if they would throw him in the water, their difficulties would be over. Oftentimes, when we didn't want to face things in life, I'm not going to say I have done it, but often. But one time I do remember that I didn't like the situation that I was in. I didn't like the torment that I was in. And I had just got my car, my first car, and things were going through my head. Why don't you just take your car and drive it over into the Potomac River? But I heard a voice and said, don't do it. It's not worth it. So I thank God for the opportunity to say that I'm here today because I did fulfill those thoughts. And we don't have to entertain those thoughts. But oftentimes, when people do, they're overtaken by a drug such as what we're discussing tonight, heroin, and how that it controls, it's like a guide to them, and they have no more control of their life themselves. Um, so there's something that's controlling them that's not good. Okay, it said also that when Jonah was thrown overboard, a great fish swallowed him. And we know that that was a whale. And now Jonah had a problem all around him. For 3 days, Jonah was in the fish's belly. Finally, he decided, I'm ready to face my problem. I'm ready to do whatever I must do. Just let me out of here. The fish vomited Jonah onto the shore. And once again, God told Jonah to go to Nineveh. This time, he decided, I'm going to meet this situation head on. Even if the people kill me, it will surely be better than dying as fish bait. So Jonah went to Nineveh and made a great impact on the city, leading the people to repentance. How much distress he could have saved himself if he had done what was right from the beginning. And we know that when family, friends, associates see that you are headed in the wrong path, they may give you instructions of not doing something and you don't follow through. And you decide, I'm 3 times 7 plus, or I'm 2 times 9 plus. What are you saying? I'm grown. But actually, I don't care. Legally, you might be grown at 18, but you're not grown enough to go out and buy liquor until you're 21. And then you're still growing. And I don't care what age you are, it doesn't really make you mature. So, and I believe that we all are forever learning. I know that things that I learned down through the years, and I'm still learning, and it makes me a better person. It makes me make the more more sound decisions, decisions that are more beneficial. So, what are you saying, instructor or teacher, whatever you want to call me tonight? I'm saying that it's time to make a decision. Do you want to continue to go down that road, the wrong road? If you want help, there is help awaiting for you. There are people who can help you overcome whatever is bothering you, and you decide that you are going to self medicate and you are addicted now, and you have lost family, you have lost your home, you have lost a job, you lost so much, and you ask yourself, is it worth it all? And most of you have said, no, it wasn't worth it. And if I could do it all over again, then I would change. Change from using this so called drug, heroin, or any drug that has control over your life. There's a hotline number that you can get the number and say that I want to find somewhere that I can go and be rescued. Because I'm speaking to um, the World Wide Web, you research it in your area, but for home in Hagerstown, Maryland, there are many resources here that I can share with you and let you know if you don't know, but I think most of you are aware of the resources that are available that you can get your health back, you can get on the right track, you can eventually, if you can't get back with your family, you can possibly heal and become the man or the woman that you so desire to be, so that you can find someone that you can spend the rest of your life with. There was a lot of information that was given out here tonight, and this was pretty much a short lesson. But I do have some questions that is in our lesson tonight. We discussed some health hazards that comes along with using heroin. As I pointed out to you, uh, persistent regular use of the drug, significant and painful withdrawal symptoms accompany attempts to stop use of the drug, continual use despite damaging physical and psychological problems, compulsive drug seeking behaviors, and need for increasing doses of the drug. These are the hazards that we talked about. Some of the harmful effects that this drug has on the family. We talked about the effects, okay, and I know it's here that it has on the family. I know I just mentioned it. Um, we also talked about the effects heroin usage has on society. And I'm looking back in our lesson, and it causes a person to lose the ability to separate fantasy and reality. Um, it includes shallow breathing, that's a health hazard. Okay, most users are lethargic and indifferent to the things and activities around them. I don't know if you're taking notes to these different uh, hazards or traits, but if you want to, you can because uh, it's very informative and it will let you know if someone in your family has these issues. And as we had stated before, it's not hard to tell if someone is using this drug. And there are often many ways users to spot users, I should say, because of the marks left on their bodies and the equipment needed to use the drug. We went into that. Uh, let's see, what else did we discuss? This is something that you can write down and write it to yourself and just think about how your life compares to Jonah. After the story that I read, he did not go through what uh, he was told to do, and he tried to avoid it by going a different direction, but he ended up in the belly of the whale. So, how does your life compare to that testimony? And I did not go over this application because you can't see it, but the question is how we learn to face problems, determination how far to life we will go. No one goes looking for problems, they just seem to come our way. When one does, we must decide, shall I deal with the problem or pretend that it's not there and just go around it? Seemingly, the easiest way to deal with the problem is not to deal with it at all. The only drawback with this approach is that the problem will come around again, and the next time it will be a little bigger. Oftentimes, we do try to avoid certain problems by going a different direction or by doing something another way, and it ends up coming back again, but it's worse than what it was before. The only drawback with this approach is that the problem will come again, as we just stated, and the next time it will get a little bigger. We can tell ourselves that it doesn't really matter or that we are not going to get involved. But this approach, though it sounds easy enough, never works. We laugh when we talk about a third. hmm, We talk about a bird who sticks his head in the sand, thinking it cannot be seen because it cannot see anything. But yet, when we meet a problem and turn away, we do the same thing. Now, the problem is behind us, and to go forward, we must turn and face what we know is already there. Admitting that the problem is bigger than we are does not make it go away. We must face the problem head on. The best way to handle a problem is to deal with it first time we meet it and work our way through it. By doing so, we don't have to worry that, that the problem will face another day. We can develop an attitude of whatever comes, I will face it. Isn't it frustrating to be around someone who is facing the same problems you are and nothing seems to bother that person? It is. So we're about 8 minutes before our time is up. Just wanted to ask if you have any comments or if you have any questions, you can write them and we can respond to you. But if you don't want to make yourself known, then you can inbox me on Facebook, send me an email, pastorparson57@gmail.com, and I can do my very best in responding to you and answering your questions. I think that that will conclude our lesson. As I stated, it is short, and even though it was short, it was very informative. Some information here I just didn't know about because I have not been really around people using such a drug, but it is a deadly fantasy. And if you don't remember anything else about this drug, it's a deadly fantasy. It's not worth taking that trip. So don't take it. And if you're on the trip, get off the trip so that you can function. Okay, I will see you next Thursday at 7:30. On tomorrow night, I would like to say for those who have lost um, a job because of your addiction, because of your addiction, you have lost family, whether it be divorce or separation. You have lost so many things. I invite you to register for the grief session. And you can do so by let me know that you want to register for the grief session tomorrow evening on Zoom. And you have to get the link, but in order for you to get the link, you have to register with me so that we can get your information. We're not going to give your name to HUD, but we just need to know some information such as your location, your race, so that we can still receive funding in order to serve you in what area that you need serving, whether it be wounded families, anger management, Parson's Acts, or grief sessions. And the grief sessions, all classes are free, and we want to keep them free. If you can be so kind to fill out this certification form, we promise you that is confidential, and we will not give your name to HUD. We just want to show them that we do have people in Hagerstown that want help, who want to become healthier individuals, who doesn't want to be like that poem and consider heroin or any other drug as Psalms 23. I'm going to read that one more time because somebody may not have heard it, but I think it is something to think about, and not only think about, but consider not allowing any drug to control you. Okay, and it was stated here that someone wrote this poem, King Heroin, and it was patterned after Psalms 23. King Heroin is my shepherd, I shall always want. He maketh me to lie down in the gutters. He leadeth me beside the troubled waters. He destroyeth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of wickedness. Yea, I shall walk through the valley of poverty and evil, for thou, King Heroin, art with me. Thy needle and thy capsule comfort me. Thou strippest the table of groceries in the presence of my family. Thou robbest my head of reason. My cup of sorrow runneth over. Surely heroin addiction shall stalk me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the damned forever. Don't let this addiction stalk you all the days of your life, and do not dwell in the house of the damned forever. I'll see you next Thursday at 7:30 at Parson's Acts 101. Be blessed and get some help so that you can break this addiction. Good night.